He expressed warnings to others of a force so menacing and unbeatable, it could only be described as supernatural. He called them ghosts.
Hello there, Sarah from 17 once again. This is my Call of Duty Ghosts Veteran Difficulty video walkthrough. This is Mission 8, it's entitled Birds of Prey. This is the obligatory chopper section, which very reminiscent of the one from Black Ops, and it's a really fun mission. It's also kind of tricky and kind of tough at times because of the way that the missiles and the flares work and how quickly you can die. But I'm going to explain things you're not going to see me do in this video because I figured them out after this video. One of the detriments to this being a blind recording. So, whatever glows orange in this kind of oracle vision, if you've played the multiplayer, it means you need to kill it. And the controls are simple. You've got your assault rifle on the trigger, you've got your missiles on the bumper. You can fire about 4 or 5 missiles before they tell you to stop for a bit. And if you hold the bumper, it'll lock on, so you can fire homing missiles. Do you see that right there where it says enemy lock on my screen? You'll notice I'm sending out my flares immediately. You don't want to do that, guys. It's a mistranslation of what it's telling me, of that piece of information. When it says enemy lock, it doesn't mean you're being fired at. It means you're being locked onto. And as soon as that changes to incoming and it goes yellow, that's when you want to use your flares. And what you'll find is when it says enemy lock, you use your flares, and by the time it says incoming and they start firing at you, you still get hit. So I had this really curious and annoying moment in this video where I couldn't understand why I was taking damage even though I was using flares. And it's all because I was using them before the missile was even there. So you want to be aware of this. I'm not too sure how much of this you need to blow up either. When I was coming through this level on Recruit to get the collectibles, I just kind of bum rushed forward shooting things, and it got to the point where I got to the objective, to the waypoint, and it kind of skipped everything. So, do you see that just then? I used flares, I still got hit by the missile. It's because I used them incorrectly. So only do it when it says incoming, never do it when it says enemy lock. Like there. That was perfect, right then. That was a perfect implementation of the mechanic. But I'm just going to be shooting all the targets I can and slowly pushing my way forward, because any vehicle section on Veteran, normally the easiest way to do it is keep a big old distance and snipe things. You know, put some cover near you so you can block the enemy fire and then snipe them with your own weapons. That being said, I don't know if you can push this spawn. I don't know if you can break it by just bombing forward and hitting checkpoints and stuff. That's something you'll have to try if you're struggling, but I don't think there's many reasons to struggle here, because it's pretty simple stuff. There's also an achievement for blowing up the tanks. There's on the road, you see those, I don't know what they're called, I suppose you could call them like billboards or overpassy things, but at the side they've got 2 big fat bulbous fuel tanks. You can see I'm looking at them just there. You see them? If you kill 80 of those tanks, you'll get an achievement hour. I think it's worth 25G as well. It's quite a big one. And you can do it all in this first area. You don't have to go forward at all, really. You can just smash a ton of them here and get it really quickly. There's tanks on top of buildings. There's tanks everywhere, man. They're littered all over the place. It's kind of strange that they would have this many explosive properties on structures that are precariously hung over sea. You know, there's water everywhere. You would not have all the explodey stuff next to the water, because it's going to take out the structural integrity and everything's going to sink. But this is a video game and they want things to blow up, so I do understand it. But in the previous video I was talking about sensitivity. And that's not sensitivity in a moral sense. As in controller sensitivity and aim sensitivity and how I play on max sensitivity. And there's this notion that playing on a higher sensitivity makes you a better player, and that is not true. You know, sensitivity does not really dictate the player you are. Sensitivity allows good players to aim faster. That is literally what it does. You know, everybody has their own preference. A good example for this in Call of Duty is a guy called Scumpy. He's a professional Call of Duty player. He plays for Optic, and he's a very, very good player. I think he plays on 2. You know, Envious, Team Envious. I think there's a guy on that called Stainville. I'm a bit behind on the pro team, so if they've all changed, guys, you'll have to bear with me. This is my knowledge from a few years back, but he played on 2 as well. You know, these fantastic players playing on some of the lowest sensitivities that go, because it does help aim. You know, it keeps your gun on target, it controls recoil for you. There are many benefits to having that low sensitivity, so, you know, never think that just by playing on the same sensitivity as your favourite YouTuber that you're going to suddenly become a better player. For some people, it will happen that way. You know, it's kind of like hyperspeed in Guitar Hero. A lot of people get better with hyperspeed, some people can't play with it. It's just how it works. It doesn't make you a better player, it just makes a good player a little bit better. Because it allows him to do what he's doing at a more efficient rate. But how do you get used to it is what I was talking to. And how games all have different sensitivities. That is the biggest problem. If a game enables you to customize things on their analog, like the dead zones and all that kind of information, and how sensitive each axis of it, like Gears of War is a good example of this. They allow you to customize the sensitivity when you're not aiming and when you're aiming. And not a lot of games give you that option. It's kind of bizarre. Like on this, for instance, your aim is just one bar. And if you can get used to the aim down sights aim time, it doesn't mean you can get used to the hip fire. The hip fire is so much quicker aiming wise than the aim down sights. And there's going to be times when you're really going to struggle keeping up with folk, but it's just like anything else. It's repetition, it's playing, it's getting used to it. Battlefield 4, another one. Sensitivity on that game was quite tricky at first because it was really, really like loose and quick. A game that the sensitivity was almost too much for me was Dead Island, because they had this kind of motion blur filter on it. So when I was turning really fast, it was really bugging me. You know, it wasn't making me feel sick or anything or giving me a headache. It was just irritating me that it visually looked so fucking offensive when I was turning. And it just got to the point where every time I turned, I just kind of went, ugh. And I really wasn't enjoying it. So I, in fact, turned the sensitivity down on that game just to control the blur when you spun the camera. But it's all preference, guys, you know. It's not quite the same kind of preference that inverted is, because I think inverted is something that your brain either does or it doesn't, and a lot of people who use inverted playstyles can't understand not using them, and anybody who doesn't can't understand using them. It's just that weird like brain thing. And I do think inverted control is a sign of an older gamer, because a lot of games had it mandatory. You couldn't change it, so you kind of got used to it, or you didn't. And I probably think that's the reason why I'm that way now, because I must have played a game on the PC or something where it was mandatory inverted controls, and I played it a lot, I got used to it, and then my brain just associated up with down and down with up. But now that we've landed, it's run and gun, and you'll notice they've given us another bulbous, ridiculous ACOG on a gun that is fantastic without it. And this is a very dangerous part of the level, this one. I died a couple of times here. I'd like to say it wasn't my fault, but in Call of Duty, a lot of the times if you push up too aggressively and you put yourself in a bad spot, it is your fault, even though you're getting spawned on and grenades are at your feet, and you know, there's stuff like that happening where a bunch of people try to rush you. But take it slow. You can skip a lot of these spawns if you know where to go, but doing it on Veteran is suicide unless you're flashing like an idiot and you're really lucky. So I would just recommend cover to cover, wall banging when you can, just to take everybody out, being patient, being observant, and you shouldn't have too much of an issue with this level. Checkpoints are fair. I can't really complain about the checkpoints. Every so often you'll die much quicker than you're used to dying because the guy shoots you from much closer than you thought he was. Or something like that, where they throw a perfect grenade. Which, I don't really mind the perfect grenades too much because I've played World at War, and if anybody hasn't played World at War on Veteran, you really need to, just to see what the AI does with the grenades. It is the most ridiculous bullshit you've ever seen in your entire life. Imagine worms, but a million of them, all throwing grenades at you with perfect aim. Like, it literally sounds like you're Mr. T walking around with a neck full of chains, because all you can hear is clink. Grenades landing everywhere. Clink, 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 clink. It's ridiculous. It's like some kind of bizarre wartime acapella thing. Acapella group of clinks. It's crazy. I don't know why I said acapella. I think that's like a fucking series of islands. My brain was just like, you should use this word. But I want to talk about some features in this game that are different to the previous Call of Duty if you played Black Ops 2, that might catch some people out if they're assuming them to be here. Because I've already mentioned that Infinity Ward and Treyarch make vastly different games, Their games feel different too. It's not just how they look and how they play, it's literally the feeling of the game. So the first thing that I noticed was there's a delay to laying down. If anybody doesn't know the origins of this, previously on Call of Duty, in Call of Duty 4, there was a technique known as drop-shotting, which is still prevalent, but not quite as prevalent as it was back then, where essentially, if you change your control scheme to tactical, which swaps your knife for the crouch button, in layman's terms, it allows you to push the right analog down and lay down, or to crouch. And what you do is while you're shooting at somebody and you're aiming, you push the right stick in. It's a bit tricky at first until you get the timing and the feel down for it. Sometimes it affects your aim, but once you get past that, you can aim perfect and you can lay down, and it's just a transitional thing of you're laying down as you shoot, so the opponent is shooting at your torso is thus moving, thus they miss, and you stay alive. And it worked really well because on Call of Duty 4 it was instant. You know, you laid down in the time it takes a normal person to lay down. You know, you just relinquished your body to gravity and you were on your belly. And it was a super effective technique. A lot of people hated it because it looked ridiculous. It was kind of cheap in some regards, in the regard that not everybody knew of it, not everybody knew how to do it or knew to do it. So those people were just kind of like, you know, I got outplayed, but I feel like I got cheated because he was laying down. And you know what people are like on these games, any fucking excuse for why they died but their own, you know, I got shot reasons. So it was one of those things where a lot of good players started doing it and it frustrated a lot of players that weren't doing it. Modern Warfare 2, it was the same, and I think in Black Ops they changed it a little bit. They made it so that they slowed it down so it wasn't quite as effective as it used to be, so there was a bit of a delay on laying down. And then in Modern Warfare 3 they completely ruined it. They made it so that there is a delay between each phase of movement of going down. So to get to crouch there's a delay, to get to laying down there's a delay. So you literally feel the as he's getting down. And it means that it's nowhere near as viable as it used to be. It can still function, you can still catch people off guard, but the time between Call of Duty 4 laying down and this game's laying down are drastically different. And on this game, it's back the same it was in Modern Warfare 3. The going to prone is delayed, and thus it's less good. You know, it's nowhere near as effective as it used to be. And that is one of the first things you'll notice. Prone blocked is back with a vengeance. You're going to get blocked all the time when you lay down. And another thing they seem to have done is capped the rate you can turn when you lay down. So this has always been a part of being laid down. It kind of limited your ability to turn quickly. I am on the max sensitivity, which I believe is 20 or something daft, and I can't turn around when I'm laid down on this game fully. I still get to the point where I'm getting cock-blocked by my inability to turn, and I'm not even sure why it does this, but that's something you want to bear in mind, that you do not have the same fidelity or finesse when you're on your belly, as you do when you're just and that's something you want to watch out for, guys, because it can catch you out, it can get you killed. So, the next thing that is different on this game is the knifing. Knifing is an epidemic on Call of Duty because it's an instant kill, it's very fast, and it has a ridiculous range at times. It has a ridiculous lunge, a famous lunge that a lot of people have complained about. They've tried a lot of things to fix the knife, and for the most they've broken it. They've broken the things that worked, and the things that they wanted to fix have gone unfixed. And what do I mean by this? Well, it's quite simple. The standard slash now seems to miss even when you're 2 yards away from a dude with, you know, a handful of his hair and you knife at his throat. You still fucking miss. Yet, you'll still do the lunge. The dirty lag lunge of death. And that was the only thing we didn't like. We didn't mind the knife working up close. It was the knife working from 5 yards is the thing that really bothered people. So what they've done on this game is they've made it so that every time you do the knife, not only is it slower to knife because it's quite a longer animation, but the knife gets stuck when you attack people. And I really don't like it at all. So you'll be in a situation, you'll go up to a dude, you'll go to knife him really quickly, and you'll stab the knife in him, and then he'll have to pull the knife out. And it's almost 2 to 3 times longer than the standard animation, maybe 4 to 5 times longer, and you're vulnerable during it. You can't do anything. So you're waiting for him then to pull the knife out, and then you're waiting for the delay that it takes him to pull his gun up, because if you've noticed on this game, pulling your gun up is kind of slow. It's not as fast as it used to be. You know, it's not slower than it used to be in some of them, but it's much slower than it was in the older ones. And even swapping weapons seems to be a little bit more laboured this time around, because there are perks in the multiplayer to alleviate this and to give you the edge on this particular angle of the game. And it's like the reload cancelling is another thing they've changed, but a lot of these things are stuff that happened in Modern Warfare 3. But once again, I'm noticing them, so I'm sharing them to kind of help people out. But I'll talk about reload cancelling in the next video, because if you don't know about it, I get to teach you a new technique, which is useless on this game, but really good on Black Ops 2 and Call of Duty 4 and World of War, Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops 1 to some extent. But thank you for watching anyhow, guys, and as always, you take care.